It is quite a big day today in Brussels, and that is where we begin tonight, Brexit. The negotiations with arguably the lowest expectations of all time. UK Prime Minister Theresa May arrived back in Brussels today trying to win something she's been told repeatedly she cannot have, a change to the Irish backstop. Now, the morning started with this somewhat awkward handshake, if you can see that, between Mrs May and Jean-Claude Juncker. She then spent the rest of the day meeting EU leaders who have spent the past fortnight insisting there won't be any changes to the withdrawal agreement. So, if Theresa May doesn't look like she's having fun, well, she probably isn't. At the end of the day, May and Juncker released a joint statement saying, quote, President Juncker underlined that the EU27 will not reopen the withdrawal agreement, which represents a carefully balanced compromise between the European Union and the UK, in which both sides have made significant concessions to arrive at a deal. Well, the EU leaders held a united front today and stayed on message that the withdrawal agreement was not open for renegotiation, something they said already before. And here's what they had to say.
We are weeks from an economic and human catastrophe. This is the reality of a no-deal Brexit. Should be a very dangerous solution, a no-deal Brexit.
Mrs May today in the meeting assured us that there will be a backstop, that what she said already in Belfast, there is no question to remove the backstop. Because that is absolutely necessary for securing and safeguarding the Good Friday Agreement, safeguarding the internal market and safeguarding also the peace process.
Okay, look, it's not like we heard anything new today from everyone who had spoken. Why is she even here? What was she expecting to get by being here?
Well, I think it's about sending the message that the withdrawal deal, as it stands at the moment, isn't going to get through the British Parliament. There needs to be changes to it. Otherwise, the Prime Minister hasn't got an option to get MPs on board back home. And I think it's just to start that process after it got broken, really, with the vote in Parliament a week ago.
And we heard, although that there is a possibility, Jean-Claude Juncker was suggesting to add wording to the political agreement. Is that enough, or should the EU have done a bit more just to get this through the British Parliament?
Well, look, the moment of truth is coming, from my viewpoint, because now it's clear that for UK it's not possible to leave the European Union and to avoid a border in Ireland. This is impossible to have the two things together. And so we need to find a way out. We saw that even the British Parliament understands that no-deal Brexit will be extremely dangerous, so nobody wants this, from the British side and from the European side. So what is left? And I think that a new solution is coming up now, which should be to consider the possibility of a customs union. Because if the UK is in a customs union, then it is possible to avoid
but that's not going to get through, isn't it? I mean, this idea that...
Well, I mean, you know, people would say if Theresa May was genuinely acting in the national interest, rather than her own red line about a customs union, which, of course, the British public did not vote on whether Britain should stay inside the EU's customs union or not. They were asked whether they wanted to leave the European Union. And you can be in the customs union and not in the European Union. Sure. It is clearly what Labour want. It would get through Parliament. That's the bottom line. But today, Tessa, was, you know, I was saying it's a performance. And if politics is about a performance, this is a theatre performance that would be on the West End or in Broadway. But that is in some ways all it was. And we're part players in all of this, because ultimately she didn't come here with any new ideas, new plans, new ways to get through the backstop. All she did was state it has to change.
Right.
We know it has to change, or we know that you want it to change, because you've been saying that, as of many of your own MPs, for weeks, if not months.
I mean, you said that she came here with a message, and yeah, she delivered that message. If we're talking about messaging, who is actually winning the narrative here where it comes to Brexit? Who's standing firm, who's going to get their way? Who's winning the messaging war?
Well, I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I mean, if you're looking at winners and losers, that's why we're in the situation we're in at the moment. I think we've got to get past that and try and find out what is mutually beneficial for both sides. Can I just touch the customs union issue as well? Because I disagree with Darren on that. What people don't realise with the customs union is that if you're in the customs union but outside the EU, you lose access to all the EU trade deals. It means for the UK an EU-only trade policy, no possibility of any trade, not only any trade deals, but even benefiting from the EU trade deals if you're outside of the EU but inside the customs union.
Well,
So
I mean,
if you have
Liam
a
Fox
customs
hasn't
union,
made
you need a
great.
different one.
Liam Fox hasn't made great progress thus far in trying to get the UK's only trade deals. So
No, but the problem...
but it would get round. I mean, it wouldn't solve the Irish border issue because it's not. But it would help enormously. But the reason I brought it up, or the reason it was brought up, I think, is because it would get through. Even there are downsides, it would get through Parliament. It would get. There are enough Conservative MPs, along with opposition MPs. It would get through Parliament.
It's the fear of being stuck in the customs union, which is why the backstop is stalled in Parliament.
You seem to be the most optimistic here in this group that something is going to come out of this, because everyone was thinking that nothing is going to come out of this. No, really, you are optimistic that something actually could come out of this, concrete.
Well, you know, the
50 days to go.
The history is Europe is full of this kind of stories. Sometimes we feel that things are completely blocked. We are in a stalemate, and then all of a sudden, we understand there is another solution, which is coming, and the strong and strong arguments.
Is that the strategy?
Because look, we try everything. First, we saw that hard Brexit is extremely dangerous. Nobody wants this. Then the possibilities of elections are not easy to put in motion. So what is left? And that's why we need to have a serious discussion about the pros and cons of customs union, with a stronger partnership with the European Union. With the possibility to benefit from this customs union.
Right.
And I think also with benefits for British population, because
the one thing
European standards are...
Last point.
Yeah, the one thing we did learn today is that the talks are going to start again.
Or continue.
Well, for the first time since the withdrawal agreement was signed, on Monday, the Brexit Secretary, the UK Brexit Secretary, is going to come and talk to Michel Barnier.
All right. Well, now let's. Everyone is getting rather hot under the collar. And this also happened yesterday because there were fiery comments from Donald Tusk. Then the fallout continues with all the reaction. Let's take a look.